It really is really, really neat how you can, I can literally just hit a button, um, and all of a sudden I'm talking to however many people are on the other side of the screen. Like, genuinely, I just think that's like the wildest thing. And I don't know. Like, that's just, if you think about it, that's magic in its own right. Anywho, I'm rambling at officially 1 a.m. I'm going to start explaining what I'm doing because I hear that it is good practice to wait for um, an hour, not an hour, wow, no, definitely not an hour, to wait for a minute or so before jumping into it, before getting into it, before getting into the thick of things. And it is officially 1 a.m. So, hello everyone. This is something that I um, did not plan to do. This is not something that I set out to do. Sorry, as I'm talking, I'm also trying to make adjustments to the technology and whatnot. So, what this is, it's a tarot reading, and it's also literally whatever else it needs to be. Um, I've got tarot cards here. Um, hold on. Cool, yeah. So I've got tarot cards here. This is the Black Tarot by Nyasha Williams and Kamishka Naidu. And I also have this Oracle deck. This is the Illustrated Herbiary by Maya Toll. But also, I am trained um, in the Bible. I've got my Master of Divinity, and so I might whip out the old Bible. I've also got some books up there from my own thing, and honestly, I'm just gonna get started. I don't think that rambling is doing me much good. Um, so I'm just gonna get into it. Before I get started, first of all, there's no overarching theme. Um, I'm just going to be pulling some cards and we're going to see what happens. This is just a conversation between me, you, the powers that be, and whoever decides to share this moment with us. Um, that said, given some of the things that have happened in my own life recently and in the lives of those close to me, I feel called to um, share this message. Um, I don't know if it's a message from Spirit or a message from me, and also at this point in time, does it really matter? Because we are all part of the same collective, and I want to share with y'all grief and mourning are, I think, in a weird way. I'm thinking a lot about how there are no negative emotions, right? And that's something that I have a difficult time accepting, learning, etc., because I do have a really bad history of dealing with emotions like uh, anger and really like bad, oppressive, dark mental health episodes. But while like in my own work right now in therapy, in journaling and processing, etc., the main thing that I'm learning how to deal with is anger. Um, right now, I feel called to mention grief and mourning because that's one of those emotions that is so hard to hold. It's so painful, it's so difficult, and at the same time, I don't know. I'm trying to turn my brain off so I can just speak extemporaneously and say what I'm actually trying to say. And what's at the root of it here is I want to move away. Hey, Christy. I want to move away from the notion of mourning being something that we need to get through. That grief is something that we need to get through. I think that there is so much beauty and salience and importance in allowing ourselves to be in that space, right? To hold that space, to hold space for those emotions, that tension, that pain. Um, I don't know. That just felt really important. I know oftentimes when I interact with people and they're saying, like, hey, listen, I'm grieving, I'm mourning, but it's just something I've got to get through, right? It's just something I got to get through. And once I get through it, I'll be fine. I just need to get out of this space. It's like, or we can stay there. I don't say that in terms of like sitting there stewing with it, marinating over it, etc. But also, there is something to be said for not trying to exit the current moment that we're in, but rather appreciating it for what it is and letting it pass. I'm gonna start shuffling the cards while I yap. Um, but I know, like, for those of you who don't know, I've been tutoring middle schoolers for the past year and a half or so. And wow, that was an awful shuffle. That was so bad. Um, one of the things that I find often is not even often, but I've had multiple different conversations with students on um, the importance of being in the current moment and allowing yourself to be exactly where you are. I had one kid, um, seventh grade, who was like, "Yeah, my parents always tell me about the importance of enjoying this time that I have now, right? You're never going to be a kid again, and then once you're an adult, life gets so much harder." And I told him, I'm like, listen, yeah, like a lot of aspects of life do get harder when you are an adult. And also, if I decide that I want ice cream, I can get in my own car, drive to the ice cream store, um, and pay for ice cream with my own money, get whatever flavors I want, however many toppings I want. Um, and I have that capacity to just do that. And there's a certain beauty of that. And so while every phase of life has its beauty, and I want to encourage y'all watching to um, not be afraid to sit in the moments. So it should be noted, Pokemon Trainer 5678. I don't really treat tarot as a future telling system or relationship advice. The way that I personally understand tarot is that it is a system that allows for reflection. Um, I don't think there's anything inherently magical about tarot cards beyond the meaning that we give them. And so none of this is going to be necessarily relationship advice. None of this is me trying to predict the future, because even if I predicted the future right now or tried to or whatever, someone a minute later could make some decision that would alter that and send us all down different paths. We are all people with free will. This is no um I consider it like, for me, it is a spiritual practice, because I find that the cards help me to reflect on um, the subconscious mind. I think that tarot is a great way to have a physical tool that will um, sometimes process things that might not have come up otherwise. And so I do my own thing when it comes to tarot. A lot of people do. Um, and so that's that. So, um, just setting the intention. I'm essentially using these tarot cards right now as conversation starters. Um, so I said at the beginning, I've got a tarot deck. I've got oracle cards. I have an MDiv. I can pull up the Bible, extra biblical text, poetry, whatever the hell I'm feeling. Really, um, we're just vibing. We're just here. It is 1:09 in the morning. I had no plans to do any of this, but something told me that now would be a good opportunity to do so. I don't know why. I don't know who's coming here. I don't know what the conversation is meant to be. But we're just gonna get on with it. So, uh, spirit, whatever forces may be, may not be, whoever has chosen to energetically tune in to this moment in time that we all share together, um, I ask that you start the conversation. I don't know what we're talking about. I don't know what's supposed to come out here, and that's the beauty of it. So I ask, okay, so two cards flew out of my hand. We've got the lovers in the upright. Let me check my camera to make sure that everything's showing up. All right, so we've got the lovers upright. Let's see if the camera will focus on that. And we've got the daughter of baskets in reverse. And so to get the conversation started, I'm literally just going to read from the book um, to use the exact words that the authors of this deck use. Um, Also, I've been saying this in a lot of my streams. Just because I am live streaming something doesn't necessarily make me the expert on it. A couple days ago, I was playing Friday Night Funkin', and a lot of people in the comments were like, "Oh my goodness, this is so easy. How could you miss this or whatever?" And I'm like, "Listen, I'm not here to play games because I'm the best gamer on the planet. I'm here to share something that brings me joy." And so, while I have been reading tarot since probably my sophomore junior year of college, undergrad, I'm not at a point where I feel like I have the cards memorized. That comes with practice, but also every new deck can have slightly different variations on themes, and I find that there is beauty to reading the individual creator's intent. So here we go. Um, so the lovers traits are unity, love, and yes. Card description: a couple standing in a body of water are about to kiss. Let me go ahead and hold up the card while I'm reading it. Um, They symbolize yin and yang, the union of opposites and the forces of desire and attraction. While the lovers represent romance and love, this card can be representative of relationships outside a romantic context. It reminds us of the importance of self-love and that honoring and understanding that love is the basis of an elevated and mature connection. Ultimately, we all invest our time, energy, and attention into someone or something. The Lover's card asks us to reflect on whom and what we are giving ourselves to. When the Lover's card is pulled, it is time to consider the following. Will your current attachments benefit and better you in terms of your long-term goals? How do you decide what to fully commit to? And is your investment in your relationships being reciprocated? And the affirmation associated with this is I attract relationships and connections with individuals that are in alignment with my higher self. So just what's coming up, first thoughts here is I was literally just talking to my partner a little bit ago about how in spite of everything that's going on in the world, I'm finding that more and more people are finding the beauty in human connection in a way that was not necessarily previously accessible to us. And I say that largely because um, currently we are finding ourselves, potentially on the brink of war with Iran. As someone who lives in the United States of America, the empire built on top of Turtle Island, um, and I know that a lot of people are showing the similarities between this moment right here and in 2001 during 9/11, where at that time a lot of anti-Arab Islamophobic sentiment was really being churned up and ginned up in order to justify attempts to go to war with Iran. And mind you, um, when I'm online, I do travel in rather leftist progressive circles, but I'm seeing this outpouring of love for the people of Iran and from people in Iran to us in the States. This back and forth conversation acknowledging that people are not their governments and that ultimately most people desire the same things like uh, love, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, lives that are filled with kindness and joy and peace and satisfaction and whatnot. And so when I look at this card, um, I almost see like different nations, different sides of the world coming together in that sense of unity, not because, you know, we're going to wake up and be allies and besties tomorrow, but in the grand scheme of, I truly do believe that in the midst of hatred, in the midst of division, in the midst of strife, that we are moving closer towards love against all odds, against, you know, even sometimes the evidence, because I know how the evidence can appear at times, not even just appear, like that's, I don't want to downplay the situation that we're in. We are living in terrifying, uncertain times. And as I look at this lover's card, to me, it just reaffirms this sense of even, pardon my French, I tend to swear, it is what it is, but like even in the midst of the bullshit, like we are collectively yearning for and striving towards something better. And I think that train of thought lost. Um, I use this term like macrocosm, microcosm fairly often. I don't really take the time to explain what I mean by that. And so what I mean is like I find that what we see happening on a large scale can often reflect what we've got going on internally as well. And so as we pull this lover's card, I find myself also thinking about like where are the moments that we in our own lives find um, the encouragement, the capacity to hold intention to seeming opposites that really aren't that there's where are we being asked to observe in our own lives where there is division where there doesn't need to be is the way that that's coming to my mind. And so I see this in terms of some of the words that are coming to mind right now are reconciliation, repair, forgiveness, forging new relationships, etc. And so while the lovers can often be read in a romantic capacity, that's literally like not where I'm seeing it at all. And maybe that is for you. Maybe it's like, listen, I had a fight with my boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, husband, wife, spouse a little bit ago, and this is reminding me that, you know, at the end of the day, we're a team, we're working together. And if that's the case for you, that's absolutely beautiful. But on a grand scheme, I'm really just seeing calls for healing rifts in our own life, not in terms of growing up, forgiveness was often almost used as a cudgel, where there's this weird sense of like, oh, well, you have to forgive them. They're your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, what have you. And I think that we often, at least in the tradition I grew up, excuse me, forgiveness is often used as this way to um, force people to keep folks in their life that don't need to be there, and also as a way to honestly permit behaviors that should not be permitted, that should not be allowed to continue. And so that's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm saying here is um, there's a quote, I think it originates from Buddhism, where it talks about how like holding on to grudges is like holding on to hot coals and expecting the other person to get burned. And while that description does sometimes frustrate me, I find myself thinking, it's like, listen, you don't have to pretend like the coals aren't burning. You don't have to pretend like your hand isn't hurt. You don't have to pretend that someone else isn't responsible for those hot coals and the burns on your hand, but you are responsible for still holding them. Right? Like we don't have to pretend that the coals aren't burning, that our hands aren't harmed, that there's a rift between people, but we can start by putting down the hot coals. Because after a certain point in time, if you're holding on to this thing that is burning you, that is causing you pain, that is causing you agony, who is it really benefiting? You know? I don't know. That's just a thought that came up. So next we have, excuse me, the daughter of baskets in reverse. Traits are romance and idealist. Interesting. So a woman walks forth into a lavender field, basket in hand. She advances with her heart on her sleeve, able to share her emotions without embarrassment or fear. She knows that voicing challenging and heavy feelings allows for healing. The daughter of baskets symbolizes love in all forms, romantic, platonic, and familial. She holds the power to ignite and reignite adoration in relationships. This card is a sign to remind others of their magic when they have forgotten it. Let them know that they matter, are loved, and are worthy. This is in the reverse, which here we have themes being rejection, spiritual blocks, materialism, and suppressed feelings. And aligning is creating a playlist. So, brief aside, this isn't necessarily a direct response to the card itself. Creating playlists is one of my favorite love languages. I'm not sure if that's something that anyone else shares in common there, but one of my favorite things to do to show people that I love them is to create playlists because music has such, you know, a brilliant way of conveying emotions and feelings that we often can't put just into words, right? And so I think that for some of us watching today, and including myself, I'm counting myself in this, music could be instrumental to healing rifts between people. And so if you're up for it, go ahead and make a playlist for that person who you might not have spoken to in a while, or you might not have said that you love them in a while, or you might not have been able to express those feelings. Something's telling me that using music as an opportunity to connect with other people could be really, really healing in this moment. Um, but I'm also, yeah, I get of the themes that are mentioned here, suppressed feelings are one that's the one that's really like hitting home for me right now, where there's this sense of like, what are the feelings that you are pushing down, holding back, ignoring, pretending don't exist, etc. Um, because I find that oftentimes those um, can hold the secret to healing. And I want to like use two examples here because I think that this can go two different ways, right? So on the one hand, this could be a situation where I'm imagining a person saying like, "No, I'm fine. Everything's perfect. Things are going so great. Things are so good right now. Things are excellent. Things are brilliant. Everything is perfect." But really, underneath everything, they're holding a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, a lot of frustration, a lot of disillusionment, and so they're masking some of those negative emotions under a happy facade. Um, Possibly to protect others, possibly to protect themselves from the reality of the situation. And there's a lot of beauty in digging underneath and finding out, like, actually, no, like, there's some issue going on here. There's some injustice going on here. There's some things happening here that really need to resolve themselves. But so long as I'm only paying attention to what's bright and airy and light and cheerful and looks good on the surface, we end up missing um, the opportunity. I'm getting specifically this notion of, but if I acknowledge what isn't working, I'm pouring energy into that and it could fall apart. And I don't think my partner's watching this right now, but if they are, they'd laugh at me for saying this, but like there is a line between optimism and being. I hesitate to use the word delusional just because I know how that word is, first of all, becoming like a popular pop psychology term, but also can be used as a way to dismiss the experience of people with psychosis and whatnot. But I'm going to use the word delusional. I think that both of us, I say both of us, everyone watching this, like me and chat, right? I feel like this is one of those things that y'all know what I'm talking about when I say that there's a line between optimism and being delusional. Um, and so, like, only paying attention to the good things and ignoring all of the bad, I'm getting like the rot, ignoring the rot that's at the center of a fruit because the outer edges are still tasty, is not taking into account the full picture. And it's also a good way to get harmed, to get injured, to allow cycles of abuse and neglect and whatnot. The word torture came to mind. I'm not sure why that is. It's giving Stockholm syndrome. Um, but like ignoring the negativity underneath because you want to focus exclusively on the positive, that's not a full picture perspective, right? Like you're missing important pieces there. Um, and looking at those negative aspects doesn't mean that you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Like I'm imagining using this fruit analogy. If you say, "Oh my goodness, let me just focus on this side of the peach that's so ripe and juicy and colorful," but you're ignoring the rotten spots on the other side, if you take a moment to say like, hey, there are parts of this fruit that are rotten, that doesn't mean you have to throw the whole fruit away. Now sometimes the whole fruit is rotten and you really just need to throw out the whole thing. Like that's something, like if that happens, it happens, and it's best to acknowledge that, right? um, but it's also possible that you can look at this peach and say, hey, this spot is bruised, this spot is starting to rot. I'm actually going to go ahead and cut those out. I'm going to remove those. I'm possibly even going to compost them and allow, these bits that would have been harmful for me to hold on to or to ignore. I'm going to allow those parts to spring new life elsewhere, or maybe they just need to be tossed in the garbage where they belong. Like, that's also a possibility. But you don't have to ignore this whole metaphorical peach. Because parts of it are rotten, but also if you're ingesting that, if you're consuming it, if you're saying, no, this is fine, this is perfect, I'm going to, hold my nose and ignore the taste, etc. Like, that's not beneficial. That's not a positive thing. But also on the flip side, right? I'm also seeing someone who is so locked into the negativity of it, right? Like they want to focus on the anger, the rage, the sadness, the disappointment, and they create this narrative in their head, right? Where um, everything about this is negative. It's just a swirling storm, a torrent of bad, but then they ignore the good that's lying underneath it. And I don't know why I keep feeling the need to come back to like, none of what I'm saying is an excuse to allow shitty behavior to continue from shitty people. Like, that is not what's happening here, right? But I think in the same way that we might ignore some of the bad parts because we just want to focus on the good, because if we focus on the negative, we feel like we'll blow it out of proportion, or that's all we'll be able to see. In the same way, I think a lot of people use anger, sadness, frustration, mourning, grief, etc., coming back full circle to the original. I think a lot of people use those negative emotions because they don't want to acknowledge the profundity of some of the positive emotions that are lying beneath, if that makes sense. So like, I'm trying to think of an analogy here, right? But like, actually, I'm just going to use that analogy of the storm I mentioned earlier, where it's just pouring, it's thundering, it's lightning, the wind is sweeping through everything, the power has gone out, the ceilings are leaking, there's rainwater seeping under the door, and there can be this sense of like, wow, everything sucks right now. And then also, at the same time, you can be like, but there was a drought. But we did need rain. And while might not have needed it in the form it's taking, we can still be grateful for the beauty that it's providing. And that's not, I like that example, but there's one, okay, so I'm going to use myself as an example right here. Hey, Pastor in the chat, how are you doing today? So using myself as an example, right? So I grew up conservative Christian, like fundamental evangelical conservative Christian. For context, at my school, people were saying, like, in the year 2009, you know who I think should be president? Donald Trump. Like, this man's did not come out of nowhere, and to the entirety of the global community, I do apologize. In 2009, I was 13. There's nothing I could have done about it. But, like, it's not surprising. We've kind of the writing has been on the wall for a long time. I watched it play out in slow motion. It was remarkably painful. And so, the Christianity that I was raised with was in many ways incredibly harmful, incredibly toxic, incredibly painful. Like, I am still every day healing from some of the wounds that were inflicted on me by this religious community, to the point where I spent multiple years of my life, essentially coming to the conclusion that there were no redeeming qualities about Christianity. Any Christian person who happened to be good was good, in spite of Christianity, that Christianity was a net negative for the world, etc. Like, I really had these negative perspectives on Christianity as a whole, to the point where when I went to divinity school, the reason I gave people for why I was there as someone who did not and does not identify as a Christian was so that when Christians attacked me and my community using the Bible as a weapon, especially in terms of queer folks, right? Queer folks such as myself, I wanted to be able to know the Bible well enough to confront them. I even joked, I'm like, if someone tries to come at me with a Bible verse, I want to be able to tell them in Hebrew, Latin, and Greek why they are wrong, right? And so, very much a defensive posture. But then I ended up taking a course. It was History of Christianity, and straight up, it was a class I did not want to take. The idea of sitting in a long ass class to learn more about the history of a religion that A, I didn't follow, and B, that hurt me, the very notion was revolting. Did not want to do it. But then it was specifically that class where I learned that, first of all, if you ever hear anyone saying, "Oh, I wish we could go back to the earliest days of Christianity where everyone was of one mind and one accord and one," that never existed. There has always been conflict and dissension and disagreement, etc. But learning about the different branches of Christianity, and especially the different paths that Christianity could have taken, and also the different ways that Christians express their faith and live out their faith, and approach the world from a perspective that's so vastly different than the circumstances I was brought up in, I found myself still clinging to, again, that anger, that sadness, that frustration, that rage, honestly, that rage at how people would treat me, as using their religion as an excuse. Like that was, I had such negative feeling that I didn't want to acknowledge the possibility that I could have positive feelings about this religion that, again, pardon my French, fucked me up so profoundly. um I didn't want anything to do with it, right? Like I wanted to hold on to the negative emotions. I wanted to hold on to um all of, let's be honest, the hatred I had towards this religion, not towards the people. Throughout the entirety of my life, most of my friends and loved ones have been Christians. um but I was not here for the admitting that I did find some value and beauty in the tradition that had broken me. And so I'm currently in the process. I don't think there is any future timeline in which I identify as a Christian again. My own theological stances, I think, are so far removed from Christendom that it could never happen. And even if it could, I don't think I'm in a place to want it to happen, if for no other reason than Christianity's whole MO of, well, we are correct and we are the one true religion and we need everyone to follow this religion. Like, I'm not here for it. Like, I know, honestly, this might be stubbornness, this might be pigheadedness, but the number of people I know who would be like, "Oh my goodness, this lost lamb has returned to the fold," it's enough to make me be like, "Nah, I'm gonna do my own thing," right? Um, Spider-Verse reference there. Cannot wait for the third movie to come out. Um, but like, there was a lot, and still is. There's a lot of pain that came with that. I wanted to cling to it, but now as I'm taking a step back and I'm realizing, like, hey, there are aspects of this tradition that are beautiful. Hey, there are pieces of this religion that I still think are valuable. Hey, there are expressions of this religion that I think are brilliant, etc. And so making peace with it's really like we often don't think about like making peace with positive things. That's not usually something that comes up in conversation. We normally talk about like making peace with the negative. There's also something to be said for needing to make peace with the positive. Um, Speaking as someone who knows the rage I felt at realizing that things that I used to think were exclusively negative aren't. Um, but yeah, I think in both ways, whether it's focusing on the positive to ignore the negative or focusing on the negative to ignore the positive, I think that approaching the tension between those two things, regardless of which side you're coming from, is important. I think it's beautiful. I think it's a really neat space to be able to occupy. And I feel compelled to say, like, none of what I'm saying is prescriptive. If you're listening to my words and you're like, absolutely not, don't take it. Like, I see you're saying, going through that, very relatable. But if you're at a point where you're like, nah, this religion messed me up, I can't do it, that's fine. That's fair. That's valid. Like, there's no pressure here. Take what works, leave what doesn't. Um, but I hope that me being able to share my story, or at least a part of my story, is nevertheless helpful. Whether it's, I want to follow that same path, or hey, I'm curious about that path, but not right now. Not right now. I'm not here for it. Or alternatively, the possibility that you might say, hey, I'm glad you shared your story. I never want that to be me. That's also valid. Like, there's no, yeah. So I'm actually going to draw a couple more cards. And then before I read through them, I also want to pull from some of these Oracle deck cards. So What other messages? Uh, wow, that's a whole lot of cards that came out before I could even finish my sentence. So, um, also, it should be noted, I am also just bad at shuffling cards. I watch a lot of pick a card readings where they'll just be rapid fire going. But I'm choosing to see this as a sign of it. So we've got the Wheel of Fortune. Um, Without even reading from the book, I'm taking this as this sense of um, it's describing a wheel, the sense of a wheel keeps turning and things go through cycles. But I've been talking recently a lot about pendulums or pendula. I think is the proper Latin plural, whatever. Um, but like I feel like in many ways we see that the pendulum, a lot of folks in positions of power are trying to swing the pendulum towards hatred and division, and I feel like in many ways we see this transformation on the horizon where more people are rejecting it. We're realizing that, we have more, we are more alike than we are unalike, to quote the late, great Maya Angelou, who's obviously um, such a gift to the world, and also as someone who graduated from Wake Forest University, where she used to be a professor. Special place of pride. I never got to take a class with her, but regardless, I see the sense of the wheel of fortune turning, and we're entering into a new chapter where more of us are realizing um, that the way forward is not division. The way forward is acknowledging, um, and not to flatten. I feel like oftentimes we use that language to flatten diversity, and it's not the sense of we're all the same and we all have the same experiences, because we don't, and a refusal to acknowledge that often causes, a lot of pain, a lot of miscommunications, a lot of um, bad stuff, right? But this notion that regardless of our different, acknowledging different races, religions, ethnicities, creeds, genders, sexualities, class, disability, etc., we are different. And at the end of the day, I love. I took one of the biology courses I took in undergrad talked about how we, even the most like unrelated humans, right, like as far away as you can get from each other, shares 90. I think it was 99.9996% of their DNA with each other. So all of the differences in human diversity come down to 0.0004% of DNA variation. Like we are so profoundly connected. Um, I just think that's wild. Also, a little fun fact. Apparently, one of the ways that we know more about like how evolution and life came to be is because we all share DNA. We all share that same, not the same, but we all share variations of the same genetic material. Which I just love knowing that apparently we share, I think, 45 to 55% of our DNA with bananas, um, which I like to joke. It's a quote I gave to one of my characters in the game I'm creating. You're as an insult, you're a bit more banana than the average human, aren't you? Regardless, I just think that's wild. Like there's. I think we share like 96% of our DNA with chimpanzees. I don't know. The more I think about DNA and how like we're connected on that, I want to say cellular level. I'm pretty sure DNA is smaller than cells. I passed AP biology a long time ago. Um, so correct me if I'm wrong. So next we have the Daughter of Coins, which I feel like I've drawn. I feel like I've seen this card quite a bit. At this point in time, it's weird going from memory because I'm always worried about misinterpreting cards. But and what I'm getting here immediately is that we are at the beginning phase. 4444 on the time, on the clock. Um, that we are in the beginning phases of this new future that we are charting together, right? I'm getting the sense that we as a collective have embarked on a path towards uh, wealth, not in the sense of finances, although if we can finally supplant capitalism once and for all, that would be great. That would be lovely. Um, but I'm seeing specifically that there is abundance and wealth coming our way as a collective in the form of being able to appreciate one another. I'm hearing the people surrounding you are your wealth, your abundance, your prosperity. Um, and if you're in an abusive or toxic environment, please know that I hope that soon you find the people who are meant to be in your life. But that's just something that's coming to my mind right now, right? Where it's like we are moving towards a space where our abundance and prosperity and success is going to be measured by our capacity to make peace with the people who are in our lives, in our capacity to love. I just heard we're moving towards a world where the richest person is the one with the greatest love. And if you compare that to our current situation where a lot of the people who have exorbitant, absurd amounts of wealth are, excuse me, are not wielding it for the good of humanity, right? They're using it to oppress, to divide, to create scarcity, etc. Um, we're moving into a paradigm where, regardless of what your bank account looks like, the person who is the wealthiest. Oh, no, hold on. Follow up. I'm hearing that's already the case. Um, I'm getting very, like, we already live in a world where the richest person is the one with the most love. And that's always been true, that regardless again of what you have in the bank account, you can be a multi-billionaire and still be poor. Not in terms of financial stability, but in terms of, you can see someone who doesn't always have two red cents to run together with the happiest smile on their face, filled with life and optimism and what have you. And on the flip side, you can have someone who makes $1 billion every time they breathe, but every breath is labored, and if a smile ever crosses their face, it doesn't reach their eyes, right? Like, love is the most valuable currency. Um, and honestly, I wish that that did reflect more often in our bank accounts. I wish that that did reflect more often in terms of how we receive that in the physical, right? Like, in the physical realm, where we have these meat suits and we eat and we drink and we be merry. I wish that, love was a currency you could make rain at the club. Um, and who knows, maybe one day we could get to that point. Maybe we are moving towards a place where the folks who have the most love in their hearts will genuinely be regarded as the most successful people in the world. And instead of having, billionaires on panels talking about how they make all their money, we can have people from around the world where we're just asking, like, how do you have so much love in your heart? Like, how do you do it? Despite how cruel the world can be, despite how painful the world can be, how do you have so much love in your heart? That could be the new aspiration. That could be the world we're creating. But whether or not it is, whether or not it reflects, again, whether it's in your bank account or your living situation or how much debt you have or what have you, um, I'm just feeling called to share that I do believe that even in the present moment, the wealthiest person is the one with the most love. And so I think that, as we chase prosperity, abundance, wealth, all of those things, I think it's really important to get crystal clear on what that looks like for you. Um, so, using myself as an example, I am someone who um, is seeking greater financial abundance. I look forward to the day when uh, I'm in a different financial place than I am right now. And also, I recognize that the version of me, 2 or 3 years ago, might very well look at me and be like, damn, we're doing pretty good for ourselves. Look at us. And so, like, circling back around to the importance of, being in the moment and appreciating every moment you have. And I feel like my voice does not usually get this scratchy when I'm gaming. That's weird. But anywho, um, no, I just find myself thinking like abundance, prosperity, wealth, all of those things can take the form of money. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think that, money is a tool. Money can be used to change the world for the better. I often, I'll hear about, oh, the US just spent $60 billion on bombs. Do you have any idea how many hungry children that could feed? Um, and I long for a world where putting food on the lunch tables for children is more important than paying to turn children in other countries into corpses, right? Like, I look forward to the day when we decide to allocate this tool, this money, towards that end. But I think it also goes to show, like, money itself isn't the goal, or at least it shouldn't be, right? Like, at the end of the day, when I think myself about, wanting financial abundance, it's like, do I do I want to see number go big in bank account, or do I just want to know that rent is covered? Do I want to be able to go out to dinner more often? Do I, want to be able to take care of my family? Do I want to be able to take the vacation? Do I want to be able to start a business? Do I want to be able to give more to the homeless people who I, cross paths with every day? Do I even want to use that money to improve the systems we have in place to take care of those who are unhoused, despite the fact that last time I checked, there were 7 vacant homes for every one homeless person. And time after time, studies have shown that universal basic income and giving people houses is one of the best ways to reduce costs for medical care and, reducing crime and healthcare costs and all number of things. Anywho, brief tangent. Um, yeah, I'm just thinking about like we we as a community, as a collective, are drawing nearer to a point when we are capable of identifying that which truly makes us rich, which isn't money. It's not the number in our bank account, but it's our collective will to use the tools at our disposal, including money, to create a world that benefits all of us, not just a few people at the top. So, we also have the Empress, which for me, I interpret through the lens. When I think of the Empress, I typically think of, if I'm not mistaken, in the traditional. Lord Jesus, why is my throat? Taking this as a moment to remind y'all, to hydrate. Hydration is super important, but also I'm getting the feeling that someone who's either watching right now or who will be watching in the future might have something that they've been yearning to say. Um, so I have mixed feelings about talking about chakras, specifically because chakras are specifically related to the Hindu religion. And while I understand the desire to um, share in the beauty of other religious traditions um, within colonial imperialist systems, we do also have a habit of just taking bits and pieces from other religions, splashing a can of paint over them, and rewriting them as something entirely new. And so I don't know enough about the Hindu origins of chakras to be able to say, maybe your throat chakra's blocked or whatever, which is a turn of phrase I hear often in like new age witchy spiritual spaces. But the fact that I am having so much trouble saying things, number one, leads me to ask myself, are there things that I need to say that I've been avoiding? Because I do think it's interesting that I can stream games for hours and not have this problem. But as soon as I'm talking about spiritual things, there's a block in my throat. Um, but yeah, I want to take that as an invitation. Excuse me. If there's anything that y'all have been holding on to that needs to see the light of day in the form of the written or spoken word, I want to encourage y'all to do that, and I will hold myself to the same standard. But anyway, returning to the Empress. Um, Again, the Empress, from what I understand, is a card of wealth, a card of abundance. When it comes to the Rider-Waite Tarot, if I'm not mistaken, the Empress is adorned in greenery and fruits and gold and all of these things. And similarly, I find that it's reinforcing this question of what does it look like to create abundance, to create um, the word decadence comes to mind. I'm currently playing a Honkai Star Rail, and Penacony very much suits the definition. But it's this again, this question of if we are in this moment called to call in abundance, what does that look like? Because we get to decide. Um, there's a channel on YouTube I understood who I uh, personally appreciate deeply. I find her witness, her spiritual authenticity to be absolutely infectious and beautiful. Um, but she talks about how we live under colonial imaginations. We live under imaginations that have been set in place and created by people who are not us, by people who often don't have our best interests at heart. We live, in a world created by the imaginations, linked to white supremacy, homophobia, transphobia, misogyny, etc. And so we have the capacity to dream up better worlds. And our ability to create better worlds lies on the other side of being able to envision it, to imagine it. Because, you can get behind the wheel of a car and just go joyriding and not know where you're going. And there's a beauty in that. Like, I wish gas weren't so expensive because I do sometimes love just driving around and being like, what happens if I get off at this exit? I used to play a game, every now and then I'll still play a game where it's like, okay, we're at an intersection. Do we go left or right? Okay, next intersection, do we go continue straight or go right? Like that sort of vibe, and just being able to just go and also have the confidence of being able to map quest our way home should we need to. Um, but if we are moving if we want to move in the direction of a better world, a world built for all of us, where all of us can thrive, where all of us can live lives of peace and prosperity and equity, etc., it behooves us to pick up a map, whether it's virtual or, truth be told, apart from like going to a museum or whatever, I've never actually had to hold a real like physical map while driving. But it behooves us to know where we're going, or at least to know where we're not going. And so, as I pull this Empress card, I'm getting this sense of knowing where we're going, or getting clear on where we're going, or allowing our intuition to expand so that the possibility of where we're going is even broader. So, lastly, we also have the Six of Baskets. Where's the camera? There we go. And the Hierophant. And I actually want to start with this Hierophant because the Hierophant is normally Hierophant, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but it's normally a man dressed in sort of like papal regalia. Um, and I just absolutely love the fact that this is a church woman. She's standing in front of a church. You can see the cross on the steeple, but also you can see the phases of the moon going around her. And I just think that's absolutely beautiful, just talking about the Hierophant being the teacher. And here I'm getting the sense of what is there, how much is there to learn from people who stand at the borders, at the boundaries of what we think traditions can be. So, typically speaking, I think of the sequence of the moon as a pagan symbol. I actually, in fact, I don't know if you can see that, have it on the back of my phone as a sort of like witchy lunar celestial vibe. And we have that going on in front of a church. And so, for those of you who don't know, members of the Black diaspora have long integrated traditional aspects of um, our indigenous religions, the religions that we had and practiced and followed before Christianity came via white colonialism, European colonialism, which I feel it is necessary to note that many of the earliest converts to Christianity were Africans. I'm thinking about, excuse me, the Ethiopian eunuch, where let's talk about gender variance being an aspect of Christianity since the very beginning. I just think that's beautiful, and that's something to explore more in future sessions like this. Um, but I find myself thinking about how often we find the divine either at the outer edges of what we know to be. We find God pushing at the edges of those boxes because the box was always too small to contain the divine. Or we find, the divine in unexpected places where these boundaries meet. Um, Using myself as an example, I don't say this to pat myself on the back. I say this as, an objective fact of the interactions I've had with people. I have a lot of really neat spiritual insights by virtue of being someone who exists at the intersection of someone who was raised in the church, someone who has a graduate degree in the Bible, and someone who does not identify as Christian. Even when I did identify as Christian, my perspectives often put me at odds with people who have a vested interest in pushing a very particular narrative of what Christianity is, or at least should be, because my questions could not be contained by the dogma that they were trying to enforce upon me. And so I find that the world is full of those moments where, we love day and we love night, but twilight, dusk, dawn, chef's kiss, where the sky is literally painted with the most beautiful colors. Or likewise, we love land, we love sea, but the beaches, swamps, being just like this watery land in between, so cool. And similarly, I feel compelled to note, there is a lot of beauty that exists um, at the edges of and in the midst of the gender binary. Just in terms of, we often hear, especially given some of the current rhetoric that's happening, we have there's a lot of transphobic rhetoric going on, right? Um, I don't think you have to look very far to find that. But there's a verse in the Bible. I'm actually pulling up the Bible app on my phone that I've been thinking about for the last 2 weeks. I'll be perfectly honest. So I do have a master's degree in divinity. I have not read the entire Bible. Um, when I Before I went to divinity school, I decided that I wanted to try to read the Bible straight through. I started in Genesis. I got to the Psalms. I saw that there were 150 of them, and I stopped. Mind you, I have gone back and read several books, both in the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament since then. But Isaiah is another one that I haven't read all the way through, and so I don't really. There's a lot that happens. There are many aspects of this book that I don't have the fullest awareness of, but this bit really stuck out to me the other day because I heard someone give a small sermon on it, and it just absolutely. Anyway, so um, let me see if I can find it. Okay, so I'm in chapter 56 of the book of Isaiah. Um, I'm going to start with verse 3 actually. Do not let the foreigner joined to the Lord say, the Lord will surely separate me from his people. And do not let the eunuch say, I am just a dry tree. For thus says the Lord, to the eunuchs who keep my Sabbaths, who choose the things that please me and hold fast my covenant, I will give in my house and within my wall a monument and a name better than sons and daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off. And to the foreigners who join themselves to the Lord to minister to him, to love the name of the Lord, and to be his servants, all who keep the Sabbath and do not profane it and hold fast my covenant, these I will bring to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices will be accepted on my altar, for my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples. And so, even then, just that notion of for the eunuchs, who eunuchs are traditionally AMAB folks who have been castrated for one reason or another, just that sense of gender variance that we have historically been led to believe wasn't there in the Bible. You have these people who uh, eunuchs are known for being um, folks who are able to move between feminine and masculine spaces in many ways. When I think of eunuchs, I do think of especially non binary people, but also trans men and trans women who expand beyond the boundaries of what we think gender is, has to be, etc. And we have the prophet Isaiah saying to these people who have traditionally been considered outside the boundaries of what people should be, can be, etc. He says, I will give in my house and within my walls a monument and a name better than sons and daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off. And I don't say any of that as a hierarchical thing. I mean, the text seems to say something like that, but I personally don't read that as a name that's actually as an actual hierarchy. But there's this sense of, I know I've been in spaces where I felt like, I was welcome, but that I was always going to be less than, as a trans person, as someone who exists outside of traditional religious bounds, right? And so it's a phenomenon, especially that happens in the evangelical church, where um, you might have people who are given certain positions of honor but are barred from holding others. So I've noticed, if you are someone who is queer, you might be allowed to be a door greeter but not a worship leader, right? Or you've got women who are in the church, going back to our beautiful lady in pink standing in front of this church, right? You've got women in the church who traditionally have been relegated to the outskirts, who have been, you've got women who literally hold the church together, who are more of leaders than the actual pastors of the church, but the church will never acknowledge that because of their status as women. And so, in the context of, hey, I'm going to bring you, if someone says like, hey, I'm going to like bring you into the fold, there is this sense of like, okay, yeah, I'll be, the bottom rung of the ladder, whatever, it's fine. But at least I'm being let in. Thanks for letting me in. He's like, not only are you not going to be lesser than, um, you're going to be greater than. Like, the fact that you are here, the fact that you have chosen to exist in this space, despite all of the people who have told you that you don't belong. You are here, you are in this space by choice, and there are benefits to that. Not as in like a cost benefit. Benefit's not the word I'm looking for. Um, but folks who come from the outside, folks who extend past the boundaries of what is traditionally deemed right and acceptable, those who exist outside those boundaries, I'm getting, when you hear a sermon from the pulpit, it's beautiful but expected. But when you hear a sermon at the bar or the brothel, that shit hits different. That's the way that it's coming to me now, where it's like, when you find the divine in unexpected places, it has an impact on us beyond the words that are being said, if that makes sense. I didn't think I was going to do this. Hold on. So, I wrote a book called A Heretic's Lament at the End of the World. And I am feeling called to read a poem from it. And the weird thing is, I think I know what poem it's supposed to be. I'm honestly not sure. Um, but a poem feels relevant for this specific. Nah, it's got to be softer. So, I'm going to read this poem, Softer, which for me, I wrote processing the notion of Finding the Divine in Unexpected Places. It's a poem written from the perspective of a demon, a fallen angel. Um, and also, anyway, uh, actually, I'm not gonna not plug there. There are links on my channel if you want to buy the book. It's available in ebook, paperback, and hardback, in standard and large print. This is one of the OG small print books because the text in here is tiny. It's much, much larger than reprints. Anywho, I carry within my body the stench of death, a burnt offering of angelic wings to satiate my father's wrath. It was inevitable. Gabriel and Michael stopped me at the corner of Eros and Hamartia to tell me that the Elohim knew everything, told me that my attraction to human women was unforgivable. I asked them about the Nephilim they'd helped create. They remained silent. I asked them why it was wrong for us to love as the humans love if the Elohim are made of the same substance as love. They shouted objections, but their words felt incoherent to my spirit. I asked how the Elohim in their omniscience had just now caught word of my so-called transgressions. A step too far, perhaps. My summons came in the morning. Ariel. The Elohim spoke my name in chilling unison, disquieting fury. You will slaughter the Assyrians, the enemies of our chosen, in our name. They number 185,000. Put them to the sword. It's all a performance, a pretense for my expulsion, so I will perform as well. Are the Assyrians not your people as well, beloved children of the Most High, created in your image? I can strike them down no more easily than I could end you where you stand. As they cast me down, they called me soft, and I never know how to feel when people use my strength to tear me down. Millennia have passed. Gabriel and Michael occasionally stop by, telling me that the Elohim are willing to pardon me. But I saw what Azrael did that dark day. I was powerless to stop it then, but no longer. I reject their pardon, I say, because I have not pardoned them. I wander the earth daily. Humans insist they understand the Elohim, proclaiming everything from God hates fags to God is love. But truly the Elohim are unknowable even to someone like me who has seen them face to face and lived, more or less. Those rare humans with insight enough to see me for who or what I am often ask me for divine, unholy secrets. Azrael's threatened me for saying too much. She says I'm misleading the humans. But of course I am. Whether I tell them that the Most High is loving or cruel or anything in between, my words are a demonic force in the world. I have nothing else to give. So when the humans come to me asking for guidance, I tell them to devote their lives to love, to seek out joy, to value peace, to be patient and kind and good and gentle and faithful and mindful of themselves and others. Do I know that it's a fool's errand? Of course I do. I'm a demon, and chaos runs through my veins. But if I can improve the lives of the humans in the meantime, I'm happy to do so. And when those humans face the Elohim, and they ask the humans why they did not serve the Most High, it will be an indictment upon the divine. I haven't been called Ariel in centuries, and I doubt that my true name will be remembered. If you knew just how many angels were cast out of heaven every day, you'd understand why I'm just one demon in a sea of twisted faces. But if I am remembered in any way, I want to be remembered for my influence. When the flames of hell have driven me to madness, and I am nothing more than a scorched shell quivering in the corner of some infinite infernal corridor, I'd like for people to say, "Oh yeah, I remember her. She did her best to make everything around her just a little bit softer." Um, I'm not gonna lie. When I read poetry, I get into it, and I straight up don't remember what we were talking about. Um, but if I remember correctly, beautiful words from unexpected places. people who exist at the margins, at the borders, so often have so much to share with the rest of the world who's so often accustomed to existing inside boxes. And so, shameless little plug, A Heretic's Lament at the End of the World. It's a book. I wrote it. I'm really proud of it. Uh, Go check it out. Anywho, we have one more card, which is the Six of Baskets. Um, this card has come up for me several times. Um, I'm intentionally not reading the book because something I'm getting here in the conversation of defining what wealth means to us is you see a mother and child carrying 6 baskets of fruit. And the phrase that's coming to mind is, oh, to be as wealthy as a child with a basket of fruit. Just in terms of, I am someone who I have always loved fruit. Fruit is my favorite of the food groups. And while it is, while we can associate, again, going back to this conversation about how we define wealth, for me, having enough money to afford a big old bucket of berries um, is a sign of success, right? Like, especially like, let's be honest, a lot of us are living a paycheck to paycheck. I am one of those people. And so when my paycheck hits and I'm able to go to the store and just get a big old bucket of berries, I feel like a bear. Just, it's so, a bear the animal, not the, and you, probably unnecessary context caveat there. Um, but, you go out, you pay what, $20 now, and you get a big basket of fruit, and it's just beautiful and delectable and delicious. And then I think about how someone who simply has a basket of berries is just as rich as the person who was able to afford a basket of berries with their own money. You know what I mean? Like, is there any is there any actual difference in wealth between the person who is able to pay for a basket of berries and the person who is able to go in the field and pick one themselves? Like, whether you pay money, whether you exchange money to get the berries or exchange labor to get the berries, the true wealth comes in the form of the berries themselves, if that makes sense. Like, getting clear on what wealth actually is, you know, we might say, oh, talking about the way we talk about dreams, we might say, oh my goodness, I wish I had enough money. 222, as I'm saying this, 2:22 a.m. Um, I might wish, oh my goodness, I wish right now that I had a bucket of berries. I had enough money to pay for a bucket of berries. And someone else might say, I wish I had enough time, energy, and stamina to pay for a bucket of berries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the clock. But the wealth is in the berries. It's not in the money. It's not in the time. It's not in the energy, which all of those things are beautiful as well. But I don't know. I kind of want to just leave it at that. The wealth is in the berries, and how you get the basket of berries is secondary to yeah. I don't know. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I kind of just like it. The wealth is in the berries. The wealth is in the berries. Anywho, I am A, getting tired, and B, if I can be straight up, I gotta pee. Um, so I want to finish off with some of these herbiary cards, and then I think I'm gonna call it a night. I think I am reaching the end. So, spirit guides, uh, powers that be, anyone who wants to give us some bomb ass advice? um, what are some last parting messages um, for the folks who are gathered here today and for the folks who might come at a later time? Okay, this one wants to come out, and I feel like there's at least one more. Oh, it was that one. Okay, so we've got uh, Rosemary Remembrance, and we have Oats, Just Me. So I am going to read from the book. Each of these has a little entry that I just find to be really pleasant and useful and helpful. But also, um, nerding out a little bit here, I mentioned earlier that I'm currently playing Honkai Star Rail. Remembrance is just straight up the best path, at least for the simulated universe. Remembrance is largely the path of ice. This themed around freezing. Remembrance revolves around memories, but in a practical sense, in this particular game mode, it revolves around freezing the enemies and like freezing these moments in time. And just coming back full circle, I feel like it really is so important to remember to be in the present moment. Like, enjoy the present, enjoy right now before it becomes a memory. It's something that I'm just already getting going into it. I've been talking about it recently, but like the moment that you are living in right now will become a time that you will remember. And even if things are going to hell right now, even if it feels like things are flying off the rails, um, I have found that in every single part of my life, there is always at least one thing that I think back on and say, I wish I had that still now. Like, even in the midst of, like, right now, I'm thinking of when I checked myself into the hospital because self harm and suicidality for me were through the roof. I feared for my safety and well being, and I wanted to make sure that I was safe. Um, that period of time was so painful and so rough, and also at that point in time, I had some people in my support circle, right, in my group, and the people who I confide to, who are no longer there. Um, some have just straight up parted ways, and others are just people I don't talk to very often. And so, um, while I was going through hell at that point in time, and I wouldn't wish that hell on anyone else, I'm also really thankful for the community I had, and I think fondly on the community that I had. And so, yeah, just using that as an example, there's a verse, I think it's in First Thessalonians, which is "In all things give thanks," which I feel like is really easy to weaponize against someone to be like, well, you should always find a reason to be grateful, and there's never a reason to be ungrateful. You don't have to be grateful for bad things in your life. Like, you do not. Like, sometimes we go through shitty situations, and I think it is entirely unreasonable to ask anyone to be grateful for that, to be thankful for that, to be appreciative of that. But I do believe that no matter what the situation is, there are always things we can find that are worth being grateful for. And I think it's worth looking for those things now, um, because there will come a time when those things might no longer be part of our lives, and we'll miss them then. Anywho, I really have to pee, so I'm going to go ahead and read these right quick, and then we're going to wrap it up. So, Rosemary is the smell of deja vu and the afterbreath of nostalgia. Her gift is the faint scent that teases and vanishes, leaving you longing for something you can't quite name, with memories that crest and crash, pulling you gasping into their undertow. In Victorian times, rosemary was said to say, "Remember me." This is but a small part of her magic. Rosemary can ease remembrance, softening sharp edges, or she can dredge the distant past, pulling on your DNA to bring forward the longings of lineage. Crush the leaves, hold them to your nose. The past is encoded into our cellular memory. Rosemary whispers, sink into the knowledge that lives in your bones. Let memory rise up from the body of your being. Rosemary's magic lies in her scent and the volatile oil hidden in her leaves. Science has affirmed that the smell of rosemary's essential oil enhances memories. Here's how it works. When you inhale rosemary, her vaporous oils cross the mucous membrane into your nose and enter your bloodstream. Recall is significantly improved with rosemary flowing in your veins. You, you can get a good whiff of rosemary by crushing fresh leaves between your fingers or by adding a drop of rosemary essential oil between your palms. Then hold your hands over your nose and inhale for a few minutes. Notice how you feel. Rosemary whispers the memories of this lifetime, but she also reminds us of the kitchens of generations past and the scent of camphor mixing with the sea air. Our DNA has traveled through millennia. When we think of memory, we focus on the people we ourselves have known: grandparents, great aunts, cousins twice removed. Our thoughts tend to be based on personalities, experiences, likes, or dislikes. Rosemary asks us to travel beyond those associations to feel for the memory that lives in the twisting threads of our chromosomes. This is what it means to honor our ancestors and to be rooted in our own history. What if your bones are ancient bedrock and your laugh the wild wind? What if you are not only an individual, but the present incarnation in a long lineage? Remember. And it ends with a quote from Barbara Kingsolver: "Memory is a complicated thing, a relative to truth, but not its twin." And then finally, ending with oats. Also, I'm resisting the urge to add commentary. I think I kind of just want to let these be. I feel like these in particular could very easily mean different things to different people, and I do not want to step in the way of that. So, Oat murmurs as you run your hands over her tops. She says as the wind picks up, trying to ruffle Oat's ever-present calm. If the breeze continues, she'll gently chide, 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 chide. But that's all the reaction you'll get as she rubs shoulders with her sisters, laughing quietly and murmuring that all really is well, despite what the wind, the radio waves, or the internet has to say. When you slip into stress, Oat smiles gently and runs her fingers through your hair. Stop grappling endlessly with your thoughts, she whispers. Soften to the wind, be open to the sky, and ground yourself in earth to know the truth of this one precious moment. So I'm actually going to skip the ritual, and I'm just going to end with a reflection on going silent. Can you just be? Can you let go of the expectations and the need to know? Can you release the quest for answers to your questions or conclusions to your stories? This is oat medicine. In a way, it's quite like meditation, the floating in a soft space, letting your nerves relax. And it takes practice. Can you gift yourself a minute of this softness? 2, 25. See if your mind rebels at the thought of going silent. And one more quote to close. There we go. Meditation isn't about trying to throw away. Sorry, meditation practice isn't about trying to throw ourselves away and become something better. It's about befriending who we are, and that's from Pema Children. So that is all I have for us today. It's funny. Oat asked us to sit in silence for a bit, and while I definitely don't have 25 minutes, I do want to take a moment to do that and just kind of let this moment linger. I invite y'all to take some deep breaths or just do whatever being in this moment looks like. And in closing, I want to thank y'all for being here. This is not something I have done before, but honestly, it has been an absolutely lovely experience. Um, and I think that there might just be more moments like this. I was super anxious heading into it at 234. Um, Super duper anxious, super worried about how it would be received, what would happen if I stumbled over my words, what would happen if I said something silly or awkward or cringe or whatever, and maybe I did. I don't know. But I trust that the people who were drawn to this reading and the people who will be drawn to this reading hopefully got something out of it, whether you find yourself watching the whole thing over and over again, or whether there's a particular 30-second soundbite that is just what you needed to hear. I hope that every single person who has entered this space has shared this moment with me, either live or afterwards, gets exactly what they need from this moment. And if I might be a bit selfish and self-centered for a bit, I think that sharing this moment with y'all healed something in me as well. I'm finding myself more at ease than when I started this. I'm finding myself a lot more comfortable. I feel like I'm breathing different. I remember a little bit ago there was such a blockage in my throat that I'm not sure what aspect of this dislodged it. Um, but I'm feeling a lot better. I'm feeling light and floaty and just good. I feel like this was. I feel like right now in this moment, there's nowhere else I'd rather be. There's nowhere else I should be. There's nothing else calling me but this specific moment. And that's just such a beautiful space to be in. That's just. So, yeah. I hope that some aspect of this healed some aspect of you, because I am currently sitting in an aspect of my own healing, and I hope that resonates well. Um, I think it did. I was tempted to say, and even if it didn't, whatever, I don't think that's true. Uh, Whether person, people, regardless of comments, regardless of feedback, if one person watched it and took something from it, then I did my job. And something intuitively, I'm not sure if my intuition is in my head or my heart. It's a little bit of both, I guess. Yeah. Thank you for sharing this moment with me. Remember that you are wonderful and that the world is a better place because you are in it. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.